Today, New York State is undergoing very challenging times, especially for those teachers in the field. There's a lot of changes going on as we speak. So as you are entering student teaching, you're going to be hearing and seeing, and if you have the opportunity to be part of some of these organizational meetings that are going on in schools today with all these new initiatives New York State has put in place for this year, I would strongly encourage you to do it. While it's very challenging for those in the field, it's also a very exciting time in education. I think the changes are changes that are in a good direction. I just retired after 34 years in education, and I'm very excited about these changes. So with that, we're going to give you a little overview of what you're going to be listening to and discussing today. The very first thing on your agenda talks about the deliverables. That's simply the initiatives that New York State has put in place. We're going to look a little bit at the organization of the new Common Core and do a little comparison with 2005. I'm sure most of you, your undergrad work, you have been, if not have memorized, the 2005 core. Well, as of July 1st of this past year, there is the 2011 core, which is what schools are beginning to put in place this year. So you'll see evidence of that. College and career ready is something that has driven the new core, not only for New York State, but across the country. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Because college and career ready standards are in place, it has forced instruction to change in New York State for both ELA, literacy, and math. PARCC assessments. PARCC assessments will eventually replace the New York State assessments, or at least that's the intention as of today. And PARCC stands for Partnership for Assessment of Readiness for College and Career. All right, great big long acronym. And with those new assessments, there are going to be key vocabulary strategies that students will need in order to be successful, not only with working with the Common Core, but also with taking these new assessments, as well as something called close reading. And at the end of our time here together today, I'm going to model with you a little snapshot of what close reading looks like, and hopefully we'll have enough time for you to actually practice this before you leave today. Close reading is one of the new buzzwords out there in the field. Okay? As Kathy said, we'll give you a break, 10:15. And the workshop is designed, if you have questions, feel free to raise your hand and ask them, all right? And it's also, you'll be asked to do some discussion as well with people sitting on either side of you and then sharing out. So we'll do some of that kind of format to kind of help you internalize what this is all about, all right? Any questions so far? Okay. So the deliverables. The first deliverable has to do with the new Common Core. And this year is a phase-in period for both ELA and literacy and math. I put the acronyms there because you're going to hear all kinds of acronyms out in the field. So CCLS, all right, Common Core Learning Standards. Another deliverable is the school-based inquiry and data-driven instruction. And this I'm sure you've heard more about, where there are key assessments They're called interim assessments. Teachers are actually doing data analysis on these key interim assessments, and the results are driving instruction for student achievement. All right? So in schools, they have, sometimes they're called SBIT teams, where groups of teachers at grade levels get together, begin to analyze the results of these interim assessments across grade levels, and then whatever the strengths and weaknesses are, that helps drive instruction for a next period of time. Okay? And then the last one is APPR, Annual Professional Performance Review, and this is the new teacher evaluation system. And in New York State currently, whatever school you're in, teachers' unions are negotiating what this is going to look like. The state has given certain parameters that have to be abided by. Schools have options for other components that can be negotiated as part of the new teacher evaluation piece. So depending on what school you're in, it can look a little different from school to school, district to district, okay? But today, we are really here to focus on ELA and literacy. In your packets, you do have a document put out by the New York State Education Department. And what they have done is a side-by-side comparison of the new standards with the old standards. All right, sometimes it's referred to as a crosswalk. So that's another term you will hear out in the field, crosswalk between the old and the new. On the right-hand side are the 2005, and on the left-hand side are the 2011. So what I'd like you to do is kind of skim through that left-hand side and make a notation of anything there that strikes you as very new and different compared to what you have been used to over the past 2 or 3 years as a future teacher. So I'll give you a couple of minutes on the clock. Okay, let's start right from the beginning with the standards, the new 2011 P through 12 Common Core Learning Standards. What stands out there as being different compared to the 2005? Don't be bashful, even though you're on TV. Okay, thank you.
It's quantity of standards, I guess. And you're talking about 34 college and career readiness standards versus basically 4 standards in the other one.
That's right. The 34 college and career ready, and believe it or not, even kindergarten has college and career ready standards. So as you begin to delve into the new core, you will see, starting in kindergarten all the way through grade 12, they are actually the exact same standards, but how they're implemented, of course, is different based on the age level. Okay? All right. The second, the organization of it. A comment about the organization. Thank you.
I believe the new standards give you more room to integrate into other subjects instead of so regimented.
That's a very good observation. The new standards, once they're totally implemented, it's intended to be interdisciplinary, for sure. And in order to fully implement the new standards, every single teacher in a school needs to be a teacher of reading and writing. Otherwise, the expectations will not be met. All right, so that's important. So even your music and your art teachers are expected to be teachers of reading and writing if this is going to work as it's designed to. So that's a very good observation. So there's a comprehensive K-5, And then you'll notice 2 content-specific sections. For English Language Arts, there's a 6 through 12. And then there is one for literacy, for history, science, social studies, and technical subjects. Now, technical subjects is kind of an all-encompassing thing. This is actually in the standards. So history, social, and technical subjects all have these reading and writing standards in there. So currently, these subject areas are still under the 2005 curriculum. All right, that has not changed. So in addition to the 2005, they now have reading and writing standards to infuse in there. And I just wanted to give you a few examples of what that sounds like. For reading, it talks about citing specific textual evidence to support analysis of scientific, historic, and technical text. All right, that sounds pretty heavy. For the writing piece, write arguments to support claims in an analysis of a substantive topic or text using valid reasoning and relevant and sufficient evidence. All right, now if you're used to the 2005 core, you know, even the terminology of the 2011, it implies a higher degree of rigor, all right, more intense. So everything in the 2005 still stands, but they've really increased the difficulty, the challenge, the rigor of what is relevant in student achievement. So I wanted to share that with you. And then it continues on the next page with the strands. All right, and what do you notice about the strands? Thank you.
I noticed the reading section is divided into literature and informational text now, so that's separated.
Very good. So they've really, for K through 5 actually now has a set of standards for reading literary text, a set of standards for reading informational text, and then something called Reading Foundations, which is phonemic awareness, phonics, decoding, word analysis, fluency. So for K through 5, there's actually 3 sets of standards just for reading. All right? And then we also have the writing strand, speaking and listening, and language. The topics underneath, you're going to see under reading, key ideas and details, craft and structure, integration of knowledge and ideas, range of reading and level of text complexity. Every single grade level span, those are your subtopics. They're all the same, starting in kindergarten all the way through. So, if you will, they are your consistent components that you're going to be looking for. It continues on the next page with the writing. And the writing, if you were looking at the writing strands, actually looking at the document itself could be a whole other full-day workshop. But just so you kind of know, this here, you can see I've got a lot of stickies in here. This is all the core for ELA and literacy, okay, just this piece. All right, this here is the math piece, okay? So for ELA and literacy, as I stated before, everything in the 2005 is still important, but looking at these standards, it really is something above and beyond the 2005. For math, it's a little bit different. Math has had quite a shift in what is taught at each grade level. So that is something, too, as you go into schools, you're going to see teachers trying to adjust their curriculum. Textbooks are going to have to be adjusted as well. So there's more of a challenge for math in content-wise. You have the grade-specific standards, all right, once again, grade-specific to meet those college and careers. And then the last thing they share with you are the appendices. And the appendices are terrific resources for you as future teachers, terrific resources for you as you go out into the field. Appendix A has all the research that is the basis for the new Common Core. Appendix B has complex text exemplars, all right? So these would be pieces of literature, pieces of information text that New York State has said would be good examples, exemplars of the kinds of text students need to be reading by the end of a grade level. A lot of teachers in the field are actually using these to help students with their complex text, to get ideas for good pieces of informational text. One thing you need to remember about Appendix B, though, what is in there is what the publishers of these pieces have said is acceptable because of copyright. So you may look at a piece of text and say, well, this is really short. Well, it's not meant to be all-inclusive piece of text. What they have put in there is what the publishers have said is okay to put in. So keep that in mind as well. And then Appendix C has writing exemplars that by the end of each grade level, what would good writing look like as acceptable in the whole college and career ready process going through the 2011 core. All right? So that has been very valuable as well for teachers in the field to kind of get what are the models that my students should be working toward by the end of a grade level. All right? Any questions or comments with this? Okay. So here you have the deliverables, the initiatives, you have the data-driven instruction, the teacher-leader effectiveness. One thing I didn't mention about APPR is that even principals and administrators are going to be evaluated in this new process this way. So it's not only you as future teachers, your administrators that you're working under will be evaluated in a similar way in this process. The Common Core state standards, and then in the center, you see college and career ready again. Now, you do have a handout in your packet that has, thank you, looks like this, and it states college and career ready in reading, writing, speaking, listening, and language. All right. And before we look at that document, I'm going to give you back up and give you kind of the framework how this process all got started. Back in the year 2000, we were given a challenge by the commissioner at that time, those of us in the field of teaching, that we needed to raise graduation rates, we needed to raise students' reading and writing levels. And by 2006, we had done that. By 2009, it was even better. But those of us in the field experienced in the summer of 2009, before the school year started, that New York State had raised all the cutoff scores on the state test. So what was considered to be a level 2 or 3, all of a sudden now some of those students that were right on the borderline weren't doing so well. And it was a real challenge for schools because in order to give them academic intervention services, all of a sudden our caseloads had increased, in some cases double, and teachers were outraged. Well, what happened was those colleges and those in the career fields, and when you hear careers, this can be a career as an engineer, but it can also be a career as an auto mechanic, all right? So when you think of some of the specialty fields, electricians, auto mechanics, plumbers, if you're going to excel in your field, you need to be able to read very technical kinds of text, all right? I, for one, would fail 100% on any of those technical texts. All right? So when you think of careers, don't think it's just, going on to be a teacher or a doctor or a lawyer. It's really any field where you expect to advance in. You need to be able to read and write in that field. So what they said was, students are not leaving schools ready for college, ready for careers. In fact, across the United States, in four-year colleges, they found that about 25% of students needed some additional help with the reading and writing involved freshmen in college. And then our two-year institutions was close to 40%. So there was a real disconnect. Now, how did we get there? Appendix A has these studies. Appendix A, there was a man, Tomlinson, in 2006, did a study comparing textbooks from 1975 to textbooks in 1996. And one example he cited was an 8th grade social studies textbook in 1976 was written at a grade 11 readability. In 1996, that same 8th grade textbook was written at an 8th grade reading level or even a little lower. Now, in education, this isn't surprising, in education, we went through a period where in some subjects, it was more important that students understood the concepts rather than be able to read it at a more difficult level. So one of my jobs when I was teaching, I actually did readability of textbooks for teachers. And if a social studies textbook for 8th grade was written on an 11th grade level, we didn't buy it. We were looking for something at a lower readability level. So for example, in social studies, students could better understand the concepts of democracy, oligarchy, dictatorship, all right? So they could internalize what they were. We also went through a period in literature where we had high interest, low vocabulary books for students, all right? Books that were written at or below a student's grade level so we could get them reading. What we didn't realize is over time, it became very possible that a student could leave 12th grade never having read a piece of text at the 12th grade reading level, let alone at the college 13 plus reading level. So therein we have our disconnect begins. So we're in the process now of trying to reverse that. Okay? And one of the ways is this college and career standards. What is up here is the exact same bullets that are on your paper, but they are in more detail, of course, on your paper. When you skim through these, Capacities of the Literate Individual, this is what the authors of the New Common Core believe a student entering college should have, all right? Independence, strong content knowledge, being able to respond to the demands of audience, task, purpose, and discipline, valuing evidence, being able to understand what they read, but also critique what they read, technology, digital media, and then understanding other perspectives and cultures. Now, I would like to, once again, put you on the clock for a couple of minutes. I have indicated for you on there some specific language that I really would like you just to kind of skim through and then respond to in a couple of minutes. Okay, so I'll give you some time on task to do that.